Hey Dragon Slaves! Today's video is about asking the question, what is insulin resistance? We're going to introduce the concept in more detail and define it. So insulin resistance is the epidemic you may have never heard of. Though many of us are unfamiliar with it, half of all US adults and roughly 1 in 3 Americans are known to have it. However, this number could be as high as 88% of all adults. Even more disturbing is how common it will be in the future. When we look at worldwide trends, it gets even more glim. 80% of all individuals with insulin resistance live in developing countries, and as in America, half of all adults in China and India are insulin resistant. According to the International Diabetes Federation, the number of cases of insulin resistance worldwide has more than doubled in the past 3 decades and will likely double again in less than 2 more decades. There are documented reports of insulin resistance in 4-year-olds, and up to 10% of North American children have it. To top it all off, the overwhelming majority of people with insulin resistance don't even know they have it and have never even heard of it. Before we can understand what insulin resistance is, we need to lay the groundwork by discussing insulin itself. Many people only think of insulin as medication for people with diabetes. Insulin is actually a hormone that we naturally produce in our bodies. Unless we have type 1 diabetes, which means our bodies don't produce any insulin at all, but more on that later. Like most hormones, insulin is a protein that is manufactured in one part of the body. It moves through our bloodstreams and affects other parts of the body. In insulin's case, it's made in the pancreas, and its most famous role is regulating our blood glucose levels. When we eat food that increases blood glucose, the pancreas releases insulin, which then opens the door to escort glucose from the blood to various parts of the body, such as the brain, heart, muscles, and fat tissues. The insulin has an effect on every single tissue of the body, every single cell. And this is what makes this hormone particularly unique among other hormones. The specific effect of insulin depends on the cell itself. For example, when insulin binds to a liver cell, the liver cell makes fat, among other things. When insulin binds to a muscle cell, the muscle cell makes new proteins, among other things. Insulin regulates how a cell's energy is used, changes its size, influences the production of other hormones, and even determines whether cells live or die. Common among all of its effects is insulin's ability to have the cell make bigger things out of smaller things. This process is known as anabolism. Insulin is an anabolic hormone, and at its simplest, insulin resistance is a reduced response to the hormone insulin. When a cell stops responding to insulin, it becomes insulin resistant. Ultimately, as more cells throughout the body become insulin resistant, the body is considered to be insulin resistant. In this state, certain cells need more than normal amounts of insulin to get the same response as before. Ignoring insulin's signal causes blood sugar to rise. Because sustained high blood glucose levels are very dangerous, even potentially lethal, our bodies need insulin to usher the glucose from the blood, effectively lowering blood glucose back to normal. Insulin resistance can be present long before a person develops type 2 diabetes. In a healthy body, if blood glucose is normal, insulin is usually normal. However, with insulin resistance, insulin levels are higher than expected relative to glucose. In the story of insulin resistance and diabetes, we've been treating glucose as the main culprit, but it's really the sidekick. That is, glucose is typically the blood marker we use to diagnose and monitor diabetes, but we should really be paying attention to insulin levels first. So, why the backwards priority? Well, we can likely blame the glucose centric paradigm of insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes on history and science. That's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.